My name is Joe, and I'm an Accessibility Product Manager here at Workday.
And I'm Greg. I'm an Accessibility Customer Manager at Workday.
We're really excited to be talking with you today in another session of our Accessibility Level Up series. If you're new to this series, each month we cover a new topic in digital accessibility. From general information, how to design, develop, and test, to strategy and content creation, we have something for everyone. And don't worry if you missed a session either. Each one is recorded and available to watch for free on our YouTube channel.
We have a special session today for Global Accessibility Awareness Day. We'll be talking about how to create an Experiential Accessibility Lab. The purpose of Global Accessibility Awareness Day is to get everyone talking, thinking, and learning about digital inclusion for the billion-plus people with disabilities around the world.
To get us started, we first need to discuss what an Experiential Accessibility Lab is. The simplest definition is that an accessibility lab is a space designed for people to experience assistive technologies. That space can be as small as maybe a couple of devices that are set up in an ad hoc space as needed, to as large as dedicated buildings with a wide variety of technologies and devices for people to interact with. Now is a good time to clarify what we mean when we say assistive technology. Essentially, assistive technology is a piece of equipment, whether it be software or hardware, high-tech or low-tech, that helps a person with a disability do something. That something could be anything from reading, to writing, to pointing, to talking, to walking. Now, people come to an understanding of disability and accessibility in a variety of ways. Some, either through a permanent or temporary disability that they themselves have experienced. Some come to this understanding through a friend or a loved one that has experienced a disability. An Experiential Accessibility Lab provides another way to bring people into the fold of understanding why accessibility is so important.
Before we get into some real-world examples, it's important to stop and talk about what an accessibility lab is not. First, it's not a disability simulation space. It's impossible to truly simulate the experiences of someone with a disability, and so our spaces should not be trying to do that. Awareness is different from simulation. Second, an Experiential Accessibility Lab should not be a venue where participants are simply left to struggle with the technology. Using assistive technology for the first time can be challenging because it's new and unfamiliar, but it's important to guide participants in distinguishing between challenges that come from unfamiliarity and challenges that come from real barriers in the technology. The goal is empowerment. We want participants to leave with a positive perspective on the capacity of assistive technology and a realistic understanding of how poor accessibility experiences negatively impact people with disabilities. We don't want them to walk away feeling that using assistive technology is inherently hard or that people with disabilities are unable to use technology because of how hard it is. And finally, the Accessibility Lab is not a replacement or shortcut for deeper accessibility knowledge. Your participants will come away with a greater understanding and awareness, but they'll still need to continue their learning afterward to have a meaningful impact on the work that they do.
So what exactly are some of the things that can be done in a lab? To start, let's look at Workday's own lab as an example. The Experiential Accessibility Lab here at Workday has been through a few different iterations. In August of 2019, the first version was opened at our Pleasanton campus as the Accessibility Research and Training, or ART, Lab. The mission of the original ART Lab was to provide a hands-on experience for internal Workday employees to help them understand their role in keeping Workday accessible for everyone. All internal training for Workday employees on digital accessibility were intended to be run out of this dedicated space that also included a variety of assistive technologies that they could try out themselves. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 pandemic that began in 2020, this version of the lab was short-lived. During this time, Workday transitioned all of its internal trainings to self-paced and online. So as the return to office began, we needed to rethink what the goal of our lab would be. It took a little time, but in 2023, the lab was reopened. Now renamed to just the Accessibility Lab, the overarching purpose was still the same: to drive accessibility within Workday by providing a physical space where everyone could learn, share, and participate in the work of inclusion for people with disabilities. This iteration of the lab included new additional physical and digital assistive technologies for people to explore beyond what the original lab offered, including things like a refreshable braille display, various switch devices, and voice recognition software. And rather than focusing on intensive Workday internal training on accessibility, the lab now offers short micro-activities designed to help introduce how people using different types of assistive technologies interact with digital content that supplements the trainings that are offered online and self-paced. Most importantly, many of these activities also showcase what it's like to use these technologies with the Workday product itself. The goal of these activities is not to make someone an expert in accessibility. Many of the people visiting the lab have never used a screen reader before, or maybe even tried interacting with digital content without using a mouse. The goal instead is to introduce these concepts and give someone a sense of what it's like to use these technologies in order to get them thinking more about accessibility and inclusion in their day-to-day work. Because many of these activities involve interacting with the Workday product while using assistive technology, it also made sense to extend how the lab could be used. Our space is co-located with one of Workday's customer experience centers, so we added lab visits to the menu of experiences we can offer customers and prospects during their time on campus. This has opened the door to deeper conversations with visiting organizations and given us a tangible way to demonstrate Workday's ongoing investment in accessibility. A natural next step was to take the lab on the road to our annual customer conference, Workday Rising. At Rising, we reimagined our in-lab activities to fit the fast pace of a conference booth. We simplified the experiences so attendees could engage meaningfully in just a few minutes, and introduced lightweight, gamified activities to make accessibility concepts more approachable and memorable. For example, a keyboard-only navigation game helped people experience what it's like to use our product without a mouse. And a color contrast challenge highlighted how seemingly small visual design choices can have a big impact on usability for people with low vision.
Our positive experiences with the lab in Pleasanton and taking it on the road to Workday Rising highlighted for us how impactful these experiences could be for our customers and our product teams. Building on our success, last year we added 2 additional lab spaces in Atlanta and in Dublin.
Recently, thanks to some upgrades and reconstruction in the building where our lab was located here in Pleasanton, we were given the opportunity to almost rebuild the lab from the ground up. This gave us another chance to consider what we wanted the lab to be used for and how these new spaces may better meet those needs. Our lab is continuing to grow and evolve over time. We're continually assessing how our activities are received by the people that visit and whether we're achieving the mission of the lab with them.
There's really no one way to create or run an accessibility lab. Different companies and organizations have different setups and goals based on what they want their spaces to achieve. Part of the journey of creating an experiential accessibility lab is exploring how other people have created and are using their spaces. This is especially true of what Workday did. Let's take a look at how other organizations have created and are using their lab spaces. First, we'll take a look at what Accenture's doing.
Welcome to Accenture, where we welcome all abilities that enable change and drive innovation every day. Our goal is to ensure that all of our people, regardless of disability, are able to access opportunities to learn, grow, and perform to their fullest potential. When an Accenture employee who was hard of hearing struggled to find the most suitable headset, an idea took shape. Employees needed a place where a wide range of assistive technologies and equipment could be easily demonstrated, and the Accenture Accessibility Center was born. Accenture has made it a priority that our people have access to technology and tools to succeed in a barrier-free workplace. We have equipment for people that are deaf or hard of hearing, and for those blind or of low vision, as well as cognitive tools, mobility solutions, and even ergonomic equipment for disability prevention. These centers are also a unique space for our people and clients to learn from accessibility experts. From our first accessibility center in Manila to our global expansion in North America, South America, Europe, and Asia, we are excited to have many more to come. These spaces are also where we can bring Accenture innovation to the forefront. Have a trained solutions architect guide you through some options, or just come explore the possibilities at your closest center today.
Now let's take a look at what our friends over at Google have created.
Welcome to London's Accessibility Discovery Center. As you enter the room, you'll start off seeing our big tactile wooden sign. But in this workshop, this is where we do our user research. We bring the community in and we teach about inclusive design, and we teach about disability-led innovation, and have plants and books to try to make it fun and exciting. As you walk through, you get to see more books and our Sony television with a bunch of our hearing devices. You get to see the papers and workshops we've run. Then you get to see the ADC arcade, where we have 3 video game stations and also some stations around visual impairments and hearing impairments. But as we walk by these stations for video games, we get to see a Tobii eye tracker where someone can race a game and learn how to use a mouse, or we show off the Xbox adaptive controller with a bunch of different kinds of switches, and then Sony's answer to the Xbox adaptive controller with their accessible controller. And then we have a table of mainstream kit, everything from makeup applicators to magnifiers to steady spoons. We have a deaf alarm clock, one of those wonderful E1 timepieces, and a bunch of the sim specs, where we teach about the ability and importance of empathy and sympathy. Here's our neurodiversity station, where we teach about physical and digital tools. And then we move over to our station around cognition and dexterity and speech, where we show off hidden facial gestures and Apple's wonderful live speech. Here's Finn, our giant android. Then we go to the hearing station, where we have demos about live transcribe. We have demos of live caption in Chrome. And then we move over to our station for visual impairments, where we show off Chrome OS, a refreshable braille display, and the pixel magnifier. This is the station. This is the center.
I know we're doing our job when our participants leave the lab with a greater understanding of what people with disabilities need from technology, and sometimes a greater understanding of what their colleagues in accessibility are working on. A few years ago, some executives from one of our customers toured the Accessibility Lab as part of their visit to Workday's headquarters in Pleasanton. Not long after they returned home, I received a note from a member of their accessibility team thanking us for taking his executives through the lab. After experiencing screen readers, braille displays, and other assistive technologies, his leaders came back with a better understanding of what his accessibility team was working on.
So why does all of this matter? Why are these labs important? We often say that people come to an understanding of the importance of accessibility in a few ways. Maybe someone has personally experienced a disability, whether it be permanent, temporary, or situational. Or maybe they have a friend, a colleague, or a loved one who has experienced a disability. But for people who haven't, an experiential accessibility lab can help provide that pathway to understanding. And that understanding is the first step of many to helping create a more accessible and inclusive experience for everyone, regardless of ability. We've covered quite a bit of information today, but we'll leave you with some key takeaways. An accessibility lab is a space designed for people to experience assistive technologies. And while there are many different ways to create a lab and structure the experiences you offer, it's incredibly important to remember that they are not intended to be a disability simulation space or a place to watch people struggle. A lab should instead bring people into the fold of accessibility, helping them understand its importance and inspire them to help create a more inclusive world for everyone.
We hope you've enjoyed this special session of our Level Up series in celebration of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and that this helps you get started on talking, thinking, and learning about digital access and inclusion.
In future Level Up sessions, we'll return to our regularly scheduled series on designing for accessibility, followed by a series on skills for developers, testing, and mobile accessibility. Thanks for joining us today.